Let's talk about boobs. Okay, now let's talk about breastfeeding specifically. What's up? My name's Chrissy Horton. I'm a mom of 6. My oldest is 9. My youngest is 9 months old. I have been breastfeeding for about the last decade. I've exclusively breastfed all my babies. So today we're going to talk about all the things I wish I knew about breastfeeding as a first-time mom. Now, I am no expert whatsoever. I'm just sharing my personal experiences in hopes that it helps you. And if you're into this kind of raw motherhood content, make sure you like and subscribe. All right, let's get into it. Before I go any further, I need to emphasize this is not an anti-formula video. Absolutely not. I know as mothers, we have our own journeys, we have our own struggles, we have our own accessibility to things. So how you feed your baby is up to you. And I am in no way shaming what you choose. I myself had to use formula in the first few days of life for several of my babies. So this is not shaming mothers and how they feed. This is purely an educational video about breastfeeding and things I wish I had known. One of the biggest things I've learned about breastfeeding is while it may be natural, it does not necessarily come naturally. And I think this has a lot to do with how the knowledge of it is not passed down the way it used to be. And I think it's hard for this knowledge to be passed down to because it got disrupted. Around the 1930s, 1940s, post-World War II era, formula was really pushed in a way it's never been pushed before. During this time, basically, formula companies really came out hard and undermined breastfeeding. So then you ended up having a huge generation of mothers feeding on formula. So we kind of lost this art of breastfeeding essentially. And I think that's why we struggle so much today, because there's been a few generations who weren't exposed to it or were told it wasn't good enough. And so they didn't gain the knowledge on how to breastfeed their children. And then that didn't get passed down. And this is kind of where we are today. Another factor is families aren't having as big as families as they used to. So they might have their 2 or 3 be done. And then by the time those kids grow up and they're having their babies, they've kind of forgotten what it's like to breastfeed, and it's just been too long. And a big thing with a successful breastfeeding journey is having a good amount of support. Mom is pretty much confined to a bed or a chair when she's trying to learn how to breastfeed. And in today's modern society where people are working well past 65 and unable to retire, it's very hard for mom to have the same amount of support that used to be given. And I share all this because I know some moms feel like they have failed if breastfeeding doesn't work out for them. And I want you to know that is simply not the case. There is a lot against us as mothers in today's society, especially when it comes to support and education we need when it comes to breastfeeding. So you do what you need to do and what is best for your baby. All right, so now let's get into the practical tips that help me breastfeed successfully with all 6 of my kids. Number 1, I always request a lactation consultant at the hospital. I don't care if it's my 6th baby. I still ask to see the lactation nurse just to make sure everything's going well. And every baby is different. Their latches may be different. And I still need that support and help. If you have access to a lactation consultant, I would highly, highly recommend having one come to your house those first few days of life. Many insurances do cover it. It is a little bit of a hassle, but I would highly suggest lactation support. And make sure it's someone you vibe with, and make sure it's someone who supports you and isn't pushing anything on you. Lucky for me, one of my very best friends is a lactation nurse, so she definitely helped me out a lot. A big thing she taught me is when they're sucking, make sure the whole jaw is moving and their mouth is fully over the whole nipple areola. There's some really good demonstrations of how babies' latch should be. I definitely educated myself on what that looked like, so that helped me recognize it when I didn't have a lactation consultant nearby. Proper latch is key because when they have proper latch, the chances of things hurting are going to be way less. Persistence is key when it comes to having a successful breastfeeding journey. So if this is something that is very important to you, keep at it. It was an emotional roller coaster for me that I was not expecting, because here it is, you give birth and you're recovering from this birth, and now baby wants to eat every hour, every 2 hours. When am I supposed to sleep? When am I supposed to recover?
I'm just so tired. I'm so very tired.
And I truly don't know how I got through it, because it was very difficult, but I did. And now that I have, I'm able to look back and realize it did make me stronger. And I look at postpartum as muscle. Okay, let's say you're trying to build muscle. When you try to build muscle, you have to tear it down a little bit, break it down a little bit so it can repair and get stronger. That is postpartum for mothers. That is breaking us down so we can build back up and be the strong mothers we are meant to be to these babies. That mindset helped me get through it a lot. And of course, leaning on God in prayer. So I know that might scare you and thinking like, oh, I don't want to breastfeed because of that. But there is so many benefits to breastfeeding that to me, I was like, this is so worth it. It is worth the first few weeks being really difficult for the end results. I thought big picture when it came to breastfeeding, and that's what got me through it too. There's a lot of cool facts about breastfeeding. One of the coolest ones that got me is it can tell if your baby is sick, and it can create antibodies to fight that specific illness. So the saliva on the nipple, I don't know all the fancy terminology, but basically the saliva is an indication, and then your nipple takes it, does its thing, and it creates these antibodies in the breast milk. And it is truly amazing. I've actually have sick children, and I think I had to do something where I had to pump for some reason, and my breast milk looked different when they were sick because it had different antibodies in it. And it was the coolest thing. So I had one of my babies during COVID pandemic, like height of everything. We all got COVID. My baby did not get COVID. I swear it was because of the breast milk. Another thing is that while it's really hard in those first few weeks, it became the most easy and convenient thing later on. Baby's fussy, boom, whip out the boob. I seriously don't even know how to comfort my children without the boob. You know, it's always the right temperature. I didn't have to bring any bottles around. I didn't have to bring formula around. I saved a lot of money. And it's just very convenient. I could breastfeed anywhere. I could feed my baby anywhere. I could just grab a few diapers, a change of clothes, and get out the door. So to me, those first few weeks while they were grueling, while I was sleep deprived, while it was very, very difficult, it was very much worth it. Now, I did use formula with 3 of my babies in those first few days of life. Big babies, 10-pounders. One was almost 11 pounds. And they were losing weight too quickly. They weren't peeing and pooping enough, and I was really scared. I already have a lot on my plate just giving birth. Like, I don't need all this extra anxiety on top of it. So that is when my lactation nurse introduced me to SNS, Supplemental Nursing System. And it's basically, you have this syringe that you can fill with formula or donated breast milk, and you fill it up, and there's a tube that is so thin, it's like a wire. And as baby's on the breast, you slip in this tube between their mouth and your breast. And then as they suck, you press down on the syringe and milk comes out. Only do it when they suck, because that's a positive reinforcement. Like, baby learns like, oh, when I suck, I get milk. And so for my babies, the colostrum just wasn't cutting it. Oh, let's get into colostrum really quick. Colostrum, in case you don't know, it is milk, but it's a different substance than what your breast milk will be in the future. It's meant for those first few days of life, and it's filled with just so many nutrients. And it's thick, and to me, it was very difficult to pump. It's very hard to pump out. Like, I would get drops. And so there is a spider. Anyways, okay, colostrum. Okay, where was I? And it doesn't flow out the way milk does. And I just felt like my babies were like sucking, like, I'm not getting what I want. Like, it wasn't coming out fast enough, or it wasn't enough, or I don't know. A lot of people will argue your colostrum is enough, but in my experience, it didn't seem like it was, because they weren't peeing and pooping the amount they should be, or were going too long without peeing and pooping. That really freaked me out, and they were losing weight. So I knew how important colostrum was, so I didn't want to just go straight to formula. So that's why I did Supplemental Nursing System, because now they're on the breast, so they're getting the colostrum, but they're getting that positive reinforcement of the milk flowing out, and it encouraged them to suck. And also with breastfeeding, your breast will produce as much as your baby needs. So at first it's going to produce a lot, because you could have had twins, like it doesn't know. But then as your baby is on the breast, often it starts to understand how much it needs to regulate, and it will regulate completely on its own. So that was another reason why I wanted to keep baby on the breast as much as possible, so my breast could learn how much milk to make. Like, hey, ramp up production. Like, I got a baby here who's eating every hour, because the more often your baby eats, the more you'll produce. Basically, your breast milk will produce how often your baby eats and how much they eat. Like, it's amazing. God's creation is amazing. So to me, it was very important to get baby on the breast as often as possible. And again, when it comes to breastfeeding, I just don't feel like it has to be an all or nothing approach. You know, I always say I was born to be a mother during this time because of the resources available to us. And we should absolutely take advantage of those when we need to. I just don't think there's a one size fits all. And I think some women will be so hard on themselves, like, I can only breastfeed, I can only do this. And they're completely exhausted, and they don't have the same amount of support like women used to do in the village. And I don't know, I just want mamas to know that there's always options. I'm not here to tell you what to do on your journey. I just want you to feel supported, whatever journey that is. Now let's move on to some of the products I've used that have been extremely helpful on my breastfeeding journey. Number one, a good breastfeeding pillow is key in comfort for me. I really like the Freedom Mom pillow. It comes with an infant insert. So you'll learn when your baby comes, you're going to be stacked up with these pillows because you need your baby to be in a specific position. I always thought you could hold baby like this, like a little cradle position. They breastfeed just fine. Not in those first few days of life. I found that, at least for my babies, very difficult. I had to hold them in what's called the football position. So I have my pillow lined up and I'd be holding them like football. So their head is here. Can you see? Their head would be here and their body would be here. But you also need to make sure like they weren't tilted, like, right? Like their feet were above their head. So you had to have this really exact positioning. And the Freedom Mom pillow has an infant insert. So it raises it up. So you're not like uncomfortable. You can sit properly and have baby at the breast at a very ergonomic position. And then that infant insert comes out and then it's just a pillow. And my favorite thing about the Freedom Mom pillow, and this is not sponsored by anyway, I just swear by it. Oh, and the whole thing is washable, meaning the pillow itself is washable. I've had other breastfeeding pillows where the insert was foam and I couldn't wash it. So I could only wash the cover. But man, when they spit up, it goes straight through that cover and right on the foam. So that was gross and it would start to smell and I'd have to get rid of it. So this one is an actual pillow that you can throw in the washing machine with the cover. Another thing about it is it buckles in the back so it stays in place. So I could get in all position and then just pick baby up and go. Whereas before I got this pillow, I would have like all my pillows situated and I'd have to have Tim bring me the baby. Well, when Tim wasn't there, I'd have to get the baby and then try to situate these pillows while holding this newborn. And I have big babies that are like 10 pounds. And it was just hard. So with the Freedom Mom pillow, I'm able to basically put it on, buckle it, and then pick up baby and be all adjusted, ready to go. Highly recommend. Think it's worth every penny. It's be a great baby shower gift. I highly, highly recommend it. It is the thing I give to my friends when they have a baby. Other things I need when I am breastfeeding are comfortable bras. So I have different types of bras, one for sleeping, one for everydays, one for like when I wear dresses, just depending on what I need. So the sleeping bras, I've basically used the same one since baby number one. I love them. They're crazy comfortable to sleep in. I don't even realize I'm wearing a bra to bed. I definitely need to sleep with a bra when I am breastfeeding. You still leak. Speaking of which, hold on, let's move to that. Let me talk about the pads I use. So I use these bamboo pads. They're so soft. I put them in my bras because you will be leaking those first few days. At least for me, I do. My body produces a lot. And as it learns to regulate, I'm going to be leaking throughout the night, throughout the day. And so these are the bamboo soft pads I use. I just slip them in. They absorb everything really well and they're very, very comfortable. So I sleep with those and the sleeping bra at night those first few weeks. And then I do have specific nursing bras that I wear on a day-to-day basis, depending on my dress. I say stay away from underwire because the way it cups the breast could potentially induce mastitis or just too much pressure on the breast. I would say stay away from underwire. So I have some great wireless bras that still support. Come on, I've had 6 kids. These are not perky the way they used to be, so I need them up. And so I found some great wireless bras that I love, that are comfortable, and I swear by, that still keep them up. And when it comes to breastfeeding, I always try to have clothes that are boob accessible. So I don't necessarily wear nursing shirts or nursing dresses, but I wear clothes that are boob accessible. I'm talking buttons, low cut, not necessarily low cut where you can see cleavage, but where I can easily just like pull it down and breastfeed the baby. I do wear sports bras a lot when I am breastfeeding. That might be controversial because people will say they're too tight, but I don't buy tight sports bras. I don't like that. These are sports bras. I might go up a size just so it's comfortable, but it's not too tight on me. So I do have a whole section on my Amazon storefront about all my favorite breastfeeding friendly tops, dresses. You can find, so if you're trying to find fashion inspiration where you still feel cute and like yourself, but that can easily be accessible to the boob for your baby. I do have everything right there. This dress actually, and it's not sponsored, but this is specifically designed for breastfeeding. You can see here, there's like a zipper here and it unzips. And so I can easily just like breastfeed the baby with these dresses. This is, I'll link it. I think it's called Shop the Mint. That's this brand. So there are cute dresses like that, but for the most part, all the dresses I wear are not designed for nursing. They're just boob accessible. Oh, if you go back to my AMA, if you go back to the first AMA Tim and I did, someone asked, what's your favorite thing Chrissy wears? He said this, I really like this white dress you've been wearing. And that has buttons down. And I actually love that dress so much. I bought it in 3 different colors because it's so easy for me to breastfeed in. And I'll be sure to link everything below. Another thing that's a lifesaver for me is proper nipple cream. What you want to use is up to you, but I use, what is it called? I gotta look it up. Lanolin shell. What is it? Linoleum. How do you say? Is it linoleum? How do you say that? Lanolin. Not linoleum. I'm thinking of like linoleum floors. I think that's what I'm thinking of. And I can't even say that word. Lanolin. Oh wait, this is the brand. Lancino. Okay. Lanolin. Okay. I use, what is it called? She's Louise. I use a traditional Lancel product for my nipple cream. I've used like the coconut oil and the more natural ones. Didn't do it for me. I would have like really sore nipples and those didn't work, but this did. This product worked. And I would use it after my baby was done feeding so it had time to absorb before baby would feed again. Speaking of cracked nipples, that is a thing that can definitely happen and it's very unpleasant. So I would use that nipple cream like I just talked about, and there are the Silverlet cups. Now I don't have personal experience with those, or I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but the silver cups, I have had so many mamas swear by those, swear that those have helped them heal and help them feel better. I think silver has like natural antibacterial and some properties in it that help, but they're just cool. And I think you keep them in the fridge or the freezer and they really help. Do not buy into the myth that you need to toughen up your nipples before you breastfeed. Do not do that. You will be causing unnecessary damage to them, unnecessary trauma to them. You do not need to do that. I think even if you were to do that, let's say you like toughen them up, which I don't even know if you can, they might hurt more because the way your baby's sucking and doing things is going to be different. And I don't want to scare you about breastfeeding. While cracked nipples can happen, it doesn't mean they're a guarantee. I've had very successful times breastfeeding where I didn't have any cracked nipples and I just kept up with my nipple cream after every feeding. Just think of like dry skin too. If you keep up on hydrating it, it's going to be better. It's the same thing with your nipples. Which brings us into mastitis. I don't even know if I'm saying that right either. I can't tell you what to do. I'll just tell you what I do. If I get mastitis, I am taking the antibiotics. I know people can swear that they can heal it in a more natural neuropathic way, and that's, I guess, okay, but I'm not taking any chances. I've heard too many stories of people developing much worse illnesses, potentially life-threatening illnesses, because they didn't get it soon enough, or they were trying to go the holistic approach and the mastitis just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I take the antibiotics, talk about it with your doctor, but I still continue to breastfeed even when I'm on the antibiotics. It clears up much faster. I feel better literally within hours. Like the next day I feel better, because that's another thing. Mastitis can wipe you out. So when it comes to that, I am not going to tell you how to do it. I definitely encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider, but I personally take the antibiotics. When it comes to that, I ain't playing around. I got a newborn. I can't be sick. I can't have a fever. I got all these other kids. Like, I got to get better quick. Which brings me also to like clogged ducts. There is a supplement. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm going to go look it up for you and I'm going to put it right here. But it's like sunflower lectin. Let me look it up really quick. Yeah, sunflower lectin. I was right. I don't know if there's conclusive studies on this, but I have heard from tons of moms and my lactation consultant that sunflower lectin can help thin your milk out a little bit so you don't get clogged ducts. So that's something I always have on hand when I am breastfeeding. Now, usually when it comes to supplements, I will say like, oh, talk to your healthcare provider. But actually, not that I'm anti-doctor by any means, but I have found in my experience that the doctors I've talked to aren't very educated in breastfeeding and the composition of breast milk. And so I would take a supplement, they'd be like, oh, well, I don't know if you should take that. And I go, well, why not? Has there been proven effects to harm the breast milk? And it's like, well, we just don't know anything, because obviously they're not going to be performing these case studies on women who are currently breastfeeding their babies, because that would be unethical. Just like they don't perform certain case studies on pregnant women, because that would be unethical to test things out. So because they don't have a firm, we know 100% it doesn't affect these things, they will just be like, just don't do it. So when it comes to taking supplements, I would just say make sure you're just doing a bit of research when it comes to that, and talk to those who do know about breast milk and breast milk composition. Talk to a lactation consultant. So my lactation consultant was the one who recommended that I take these when I felt like if I had a clogged duct. Another thing when it comes to clogged ducts. Tell me. I've never had to do this, but I know so many moms who have, and I want to share it here because of what I do on Instagram and all these social medias. I get so many messages, and it's just this wonderful mom community where we learn so much from each other. So while this is not something that I personally experienced when it comes to clogged ducts, I'm not talking mastitis, I'm talking clogged ducts. Have your husband help you out. Their suction is going to be so much stronger than the baby's. It could just like potentially clear it right up. And I've had so many moms be like, it cleared it up immediately. And so, I don't know. That's a little anecdotal way to figure it out, I guess. I've seen a lot of breastfeeding carts. I think I did that with my first baby and found it so unnecessary. I ended up not breastfeeding in the same spot all the time. And then that's another thing you have to restock. Like, I don't want to restock the breastfeeding cart. Or I guess my husband could do it, but if I'm being particular about what I want on it, I don't know. I just found it took up space and I didn't really use anything on it. Like, a lot of times I would have a book or my phone. I mean, let's be real, it's probably my phone more than a book. I just want to say a book so I look smarter. But I didn't need like stacks of magazines and stacks of books and all these snacks. Like usually what would happen with breastfeeding is my husband would just like bring me food as I was eating, or I would probably eat beforehand. I guess it doesn't hurt to have some snacks nearby because you will be very hungry, to have some snacks nearby. But I don't think you just need this huge cart. I mean, you can keep some snacks on your nightstand and call it a day. Another big thing though is water. You must have so much water when you are breastfeeding. I want to put that in, like drink water, drink lots of water, do the electrolytes, like do what you need to do to stay hydrated. So I will say making sure you have a water bottle right by your nightstand, always filled, is key. And with a straw, so this is what my agency sent me, but this would be perfect because it has a handle. So if I'm breastfeeding, I can grab the handle and just with the straw is necessary. And this brings me into ways that your spouse can help you when you are breastfeeding. I know we think that it's all up to us and that there's nothing they really can do. And for the most part, that's kind of true, like them and their useless nipples.
They don't feel anything.
But there are ways they can help make it a little easier for you. So a big thing my husband does for me is he makes sure I'm fed. He makes sure I'm hydrated. So he makes sure my water bottle is always filled. He makes sure I always have food. He'll make sure my pillow's ready to go. But the biggest thing he does is he helps me in the middle of the night. So I have to wake up to do feedings, right? There's not much he can do when it comes to the feeding, but what he can do is when I'm done feeding, he can change the baby's diaper. He can swaddle the baby again. He can rock the baby to sleep. And that's where he takes over. So I can just get up, breastfeed, go back to bed, and recover from just giving birth. When I do pump, which isn't often, but I will pump every now and then, especially in those first few weeks when I'm producing a lot of milk. So if you are pumping, that is a massive way your partner can be involved in helping you on this breastfeeding journey. Once you fill up the cups, they can take over from there. They can store them properly, and then they can wash everything, then they can dry everything, and then they can assemble everything so it's just ready to go. This one won't apply to first-time moms, but a massive way my husband supports me in breastfeeding is he tends to all the other children so I can concentrate on breastfeeding the baby and get that essential bonding time with the newborn. So now let's talk about pumps and storing your breast milk. It's hot. Filming in front of this window in San Diego with 90 degrees outside. Okay. What am I saying? Pumps, storing breast milk. Okay. I have experienced a lot of different pumps. I've gone from the wireless pumps to the standard Medela pump to the manual pump and then to the Haakaa. So let's talk about which ones I like. I do like the wireless one because it is convenient. I can just pop it in my bra and move on with my day, still pick up my kids. I do like that one, but I don't have much experience with that one. I've only used it a handful of times. This specific one I like because it has a warming function, and which is nice because the warmth will kind of stimulate the breast milk to start moving. But I don't have much experience with these hands-free wireless pumps. I've only used them a handful of times, but I did like this one when I did use it. The Medela one's great and it gets the job done, but you are pretty much confined to an outlet, essentially. So I kind of just felt like a cow being hooked up to this thing. But, if you have the support to do it and you can just watch TV or read your book or scroll on your phone, it could be, a chance to unwind. I didn't like how confined I was with it, but again, it got the job done well and my insurance covered that one. I do think your insurance might cover the wireless one too, just maybe not the full cost. I did buy a battery pack for the Medela one because I had a pump on a car ride to a wedding, I think, one time. So I bought a battery pack. So you could technically be not confined to an outlet, but it's bulky. I mean, you got the wires hooked up to the machine and yeah, but it gets the job done. It's really great when you're at the house. And I think most insurances cover the whole thing in full. The wireless one, I don't know. And now the handheld pump, I really like. Sometimes when you're in the shower, the warm water will hit and you'll start to just spray everywhere. Oh, that's another thing. Some people don't know this. The milk doesn't come out of just one little spout out of your nipple. In fact, your nipple has a bunch of different little ones. Think of a watering can, and that's how the milk comes out. So anyways, you'll be in the shower and you'll just go, and milk will be spraying everywhere because the warm water can do that. So sometimes when that would happen to me, I'd get out of the shower and I'd grab the handheld pump because I didn't have to hook anything up. I didn't have to turn anything on. I just stick it on and I just start pump. And I get some breast milk out of that I could store in for a rainy day. I do like the handheld one because I can just pump and it gets things going and it's quick. The only thing is you're constantly doing this. So you can have some fatigue in your hand. But, when I had my first 2 babies, it was still in the season where a lot of my friends were getting married. And so I wouldn't go to the wedding the whole time. I think I'd go for like a few hours. My baby was probably like 3 months old at that point. So we only went for like a few hours, but I remember bringing my handheld pump and just head into the bathroom and just pumping really quick. And I get quite a big out from it. And it was just very easy. I didn't have to hook anything up. I didn't have to plug anything in. I didn't have to turn anything on. I didn't have to charge anything. I could just take this thing out of my purse, pump, and be done. So it's very convenient. But my number one thing that I think every breastfeeding mama should have is the Haakaa. I love it so much. I actually wrote an article about it in Business Insider. Or is it Insider Business? Business Insider? Pumping is challenging, especially if you're doing on the breastfeedings as well, because you'd be doing on the breastfeedings and then you'd be pumping and you just felt like you were never getting a break. So for me, I would use the Haakaa. And I would have baby on one side, have the Haakaa on the other side, and it would pull milk from one breast, and then I could store that. And now I had a little bit of a backup stash without having to have extra pumping sessions. And this also relieved the discomfort. Now you might be wondering, well, then how did your breasts ever regulate? Well, then you would just slowly take out a session or two. So maybe I would go one session, I wouldn't have my Haakaa on it, and then I'd go another, and then I'd slowly wean it out. And that is how my breast started to regulate and then just feed what my baby needed. So talking about a backup stash and storage, do not let these pictures fool you. You do not need a massive freezer of breast milk. I'm telling you. Now, let's say you have a very demanding job and you need to build up a massive stash and like you won't be able to pump or breastfeed throughout the day. Okay, all right. But you still don't need this much. You really don't need this much. So do not feel pressure to. If you want to, if you're an oversupplier, if you want to do more and you want to donate, that's great. That's very noble. That's amazing. But please don't feel pressure that you have to have a freezer that looks like this. In fact, when I do a backup stash, I do about, I don't know, maybe like 12 bags of breast milk and that's it. And I only do it in those first few weeks when I'm producing a lot of milk at first as my body learns. And I take advantage of that. I do my breast milk and then that's there for a rainy day or there for emergencies. Because here's the thing, even if you are someone who's going to be going back to work after your maternity leave, you legally will have opportunities to pump. If your work does not provide not only a space for you to pump that's not a bathroom, not only a clean space for you to pump, but pumping breaks, if they do not provide that, they are breaking the law. And I need to find the law and I will put it up here because it is quite literally a law, I think in all 50 states, where women who are actively breastfeeding, pumping, need to have the space, a clean space to do so and the time to do so. And the space requires privacy, by the way. You are entitled to that privacy. So let's say you're like, well, I'm going to go back to work. I need my breast milk stored up. Sure, you can definitely have a few ready to go, especially for that first day. But when you go back to work, chances are you'll probably breastfeed your baby before you leave. And then when you're at work, you should have all those opportunities to pump throughout the day. So you can pump if you need to every 2 hours. So however much you need to pump, you should be able to get. Okay, I'm not the complete authority on the law, but that's my understanding of it. Definitely look into it. And then you'll come home with all that breast milk. So you don't necessarily need this massive freezer stash before you go back to work because you're going to be pumping when you're at work. Once I learned that, once I got it out of my head, like I don't need this massive backup stash, I actually just stopped doing a backup stash in general by baby number 5. I was like, I stopped doing the Haakaa thing. I just fed baby when they needed to be fed. I'd only use the Haakaa if there was complete discomfort and I felt very full and baby fell asleep and wasn't emptying my breast. So I actually just don't even have a backup stash for baby number 6. I never did. And I haven't needed it. I exclusively breastfed. I'm with my baby all the time. Some may argue, well, what a case of emergency? And I think at that point, that's a bridge you cross when you're there. Thank goodness for formula. Thank goodness for all these other options, donated breast milk. But I didn't want to operate my life in what ifs. And so I kind of looked at it as a situation as is. Sure, be prepared. But I thought this was one of those things I didn't necessarily need to make sure I had a whole stack of and do all this work and the mental load it took on me just in case of a what if. To me, it wasn't worth it. And that's just my opinion for my life. How you want to do yours is up to you. So yeah, please don't be discouraged when you see these because you don't have to go about it that way. And and then in terms of storing your breast milk, there are quite a few resources on this. I do not know them as well off the top of my head. I think what it comes down to is you can leave freshly pumped breast milk out for up to an hour at room temperature, but then put it in the fridge. And I think if your baby is a preemie, they don't want you mixing temperatures. So if you have one in the fridge and the one at room temperature, they don't want you to necessarily mix those together until they're the same temperature. I would definitely look up the guidelines on storing your breast milk in terms of freezer bag storage. For me, wouldn't really leave anything in the fridge. I would just put it right into a freezer bag storage, put it in the freezer and just freeze it immediately. When it comes to that, I think those can be stored up to like 6 months and then maybe up to a year in a deep freezer. Definitely look into that one. And when it comes to heating up breast milk, they say do not put it in the microwave. What they want you to do is do a bowl of water maybe in the microwave, or do hot water, and then you put the bag of milk that's frozen in that hot water once it's heated. This prevents hot pockets that a microwave can create in the milk. I think that's it. I think I covered all the bases, but if I forgot something that you feel is important, please drop it below. I do have to emphasize though that I am in no way an expert. I'm not a lactation consultant. I have no formal education in this. This is a video just purely based on my firsthand experience as breastfeeding my 6 children exclusively. It was just meant to share from one mom to another. It's definitely not to be substituted as the authority. Let me know if there's other topics especially for first-time moms that you want me to cover, that you want to hear from. Again, I'm not the expert. I'm just a mom who's been there. So if you want to hear those firsthand experiences, let me know, drop it in the comments, and I would love to make a video about it. Until then, I will see you later. Wow, this is a very educational video. I was not expecting to get into so much detail.